Stephen Amell as Oliver Queen has returned to the Arrowverse in Flash's final season. At the time of making this video, his episode has not aired yet, but I can't wait to see his return for what's probably going to be his last appearance ever. I am happy that Oliver is returning, but I am also a bit sad too. I'm sad knowing that this will probably be the last time I am ever going to see Stephen Amell playing the Green Arrow and interacting with other characters like Grant Gustin's The Flash. I always had a feeling Stephen Amell was going to return, and I always wanted him to return too because I was disappointed with his last crossover on Crisis on Infinite Earths. Oliver wasn't in the crossover enough, and he didn't really interact with the other characters as much as I would have liked to see. That whole crossover was just really disappointing, and it was just cameos, and it wasn't enough focus on our main Arrowverse characters, which was just really disappointing in my opinion. I think the ending for Oliver, with him sacrificing himself for the multiverse and him being part of creating a new multiverse, is a good idea, but unfortunately Crisis on Infinite Earths didn't exactly execute it in the best way in my opinion. Actually, they didn't really execute it in a great way at all. I was just really disappointed with the way that they handled Oliver's final crossover. So yeah, if you can't tell by now, I am a fan of Arrow. I liked most of the seasons. I only disliked 2 seasons from Arrow, which were seasons 3 and 4, but the rest of the show ranges from qualities of being just okay to just being like really great in my opinion. I love Arrow, and I will admit I am a bit biased towards the show. Arrow holds a special place in my heart for many reasons. Arrow aired its first season when I was just 9 years old, and right away Arrow had a lot of influence on like things that I was wearing and just like decisions I made with my life as a kid. Like, I started wearing hoods a lot because of the show. I wasn't obsessed with wearing hoods, but I just thought hoods looked cool. And a lot of it had to do with Arrow, and also I got into archery. Tried doing that for a little bit, didn't last long. But I always thought the costume that Oliver wore with, like, even when he was wearing the hood costume and his Green Arrow costume, I just thought the whole getup and the whole setup that they had for his costume and just everything about the character, I just thought it was really cool. And now I'm like 20 years old, and I just can't believe how long I've been invested in Arrow and the whole Arrowverse. Even though, like, I think the Arrowverse isn't that great anymore. I don't think it's good at all right now. And the only thing that's left in the Arrowverse is The Flash. Still, it's just, I didn't grow up. Well, yeah, I did grow up with, I think I could say I grew up with the Arrowverse from like 9 to 20, you know? That's a long time to be invested in something. And yeah, like, the Arrowverse has just been part of my life for a really long time. It's just kind of crazy just looking back on everything. Arrow holds a special place in my heart, and I am biased when it comes to some things. I do love this show, even though it's not an amazing Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul type of show, or even like Daredevil, which is probably the best made superhero show of all time. I think it is still a really good superhero show. It's probably one of the best superhero shows of all time. And no matter what you think of the show, I really do feel like they did the character of Oliver Queen justice. Oliver starts out as this anti-hero vigilante who killed criminals off of his father's list to then slowly becoming a hero who didn't kill, and then by the end, Oliver sacrificed himself for the entire multiverse while becoming an inspiration to all other heroes, and of course in the end he saved his city. You know, there's like people out there that call Arrow Batman 2.0 or whatever. I never saw him as this Batman clone, but the more I think about it, I think Oliver is kind of like the anti-Batman in some ways. Batman never had a desire to kill. There were times where he wanted to, and certain things almost caused him to cross that line, but it's not like he had a desire to do so like Oliver does. Killing is like a drug for Oliver to overcome, and he always had to fight through his demons so he wouldn't kill again. You know, Oliver had to do whatever it took to survive when he was 5 years away and on the island and in China and Russia and all across the map, but he had to do what it took to survive, and that meant doing things that left scars on him, physically and mentally. Oliver kind of had PTSD from the 5 years he was in hell, and it changed him forever. Killing was something that just became a part of him. Seeing Oliver try to be a better man and go from a person who likes to kill criminals to someone who really tries hard not to do that anymore is an interesting superhero journey that gave the character its own uniqueness. I really do love the character arc that they gave Arrow because it's different from other superhero arcs we have seen before, and it's a twist on the no killing rule that certain heroes have. There's also things that are very unique to this version of the Green Arrow, like how he becomes mayor, a father, his identity getting exposed for the entire world, and how that kind of changes the show, and then just how it changes the character, how he has to adapt to certain things because now that everyone knows he's the Green Arrow. And his whole journey with the monitor that leads to Crisis on Infinite Earths. There's so many things that happen in this show that change the character for the better, and I find the journey that Oliver goes on for all 8 seasons to be a great one. It also helps when you have Stephen Amell as your lead, who is an incredible actor. Stephen Amell makes the show, and even when the seasons are a bit bad, or pretty bad, season 4 it's a pretty bad season. I always loved Stephen Amell's performance through it all. There's just some incredible moments where I was just blown away by Stephen Amell's acting. I recommend watching all of Arrow season 5 just to see how incredible Stephen Amell's performance is. I can't picture anyone else playing this version of the Green Arrow. Like, he really made the role his own. Also, shout out to the villains of this show, like, they were incredible as well. You had Malcolm Merlin, Prometheus. Prometheus was he was crazy. He was a crazy villain for Arrow season 5. I know some people think he's like the best villain of all time, of the Arrowverse or whatever. I think Prometheus was a pretty great villain. I wouldn't say he's like, oh my god, the best or anything like that. I mean, there were some moments where I was just kind of like, not meh, but it wasn't super great. I think people kind of overrate Prometheus a little bit, but still a great villain that this show had. Ricardo Diaz was pretty good too, especially like near the end of Arrow season 6 and the beginning of Arrow season 7. Then you have Ra's al Ghul too, who was solid. I think the acting was pretty good. The writing for the characters was a little bit hit and miss. As bad as Arrow season 4 was, I even found Damien Darhk to be an entertaining antagonist, but he was much better in Legends of Tomorrow. I think he became a great villain and character on that show. Then there was Arrow season 7 with Emiko Queen, and that was just kind of lame. But then you have Deathstroke, and Deathstroke is in a league of his own. Deathstroke was amazing on Arrow. What I'm about to say is probably going to anger a lot of people, but Deathstroke for me, from Arrow season 2, is one of my favorite villains of all time. Arrow's Deathstroke is probably up there, like in my top 25 favorite villains of all time. He's probably even higher. I'd really have to think about like all of my favorite villains of all time, like Voldemort, Joker from The Dark Knight, Bane from The Dark Knight Rises, Darth Vader, of course, but Deathstroke is definitely somewhere on that list, and he's near like top 25, top 20, probably even higher. Anu Bennett gave such a great performance as Deathstroke, especially in season 2 of Arrow, plus he was given great writing and dialogue during that season too. The scene that sticks with me when I think of Deathstroke comes from season 2 of Arrow, where Deathstroke makes Oliver choose between his mother and sister, like which one he's gonna kill, and that was just such a crazy, like what the hell, WTF moment that this show did. I remember being so shocked by that scene at the time, and it's just a crazy scenario to put any hero in, making you choose between your mom and sister which one to live or die. It's just like, yo, that's just a crazy thing for a villain to do. And you could tell Deathstroke is kind of like insane, but at the same time he's pretty smart. And he's just a scary villain. He just felt like he was unstoppable. Also, that scene tied back to a flashback pretty well, so that whole scene with Deathstroke and like him choosing between his mom and sister tied back to a flashback between Shadow and Sarah, which one Oliver had to choose between Sarah and Shadow, which one should live or die. Shadow ended up dying, and Deathstroke's mind was already going a little crazy because of the Marakuru. But yeah, that scene also ties back to a flashback, which makes the scene even better. And then obviously at the end, Deathstroke ends up killing Oliver's mom, and it was just such an emotional scene. And it's just great acting by everyone, great directing, great writing. But there was just so many moments with Deathstroke in Arrow season 2 where I just had goosebumps. But not just with Deathstroke. If you look like in the entire show, I could point out so many different moments. I'd probably be here all day pointing out like 50 things where this show is just amazing. I just think this show has a lot of great moments. I mean, there's 22 episodes per season for like 8 years. Well, the final season is shorter, but for the first 7 seasons, there's 22 something episodes, and there's just a lot of great moments that this show had. I also really like the side characters of this show too. They all help make the show even better. Most of them. I mean, there are some bad characters, but most of the characters on Arrow I think complement the show. My favorite side characters on Arrow were Diggle and Roy. The stories that they were given complement Oliver and the show really well. Arrow has some great action, and there are some fight scenes where I would say it's like some of my favorite superhero fight scenes of all time. But most of the time, I would say the action is just very entertaining. It's actually kind of surprising at how good the action was for a show that had 20 plus episodes per season. You know, I miss having a show that gave me fight scenes that were like entertaining 20 weeks a year for 8 straight years. Even though I am a bit biased when it comes to Arrow, I genuinely think it is one of the best superhero shows of all time, and it also deserves a lot of credit for creating a pretty successful TV superhero connected universe that lasted a long time. Say what you will about the Arrowverse, I mean, the state of quality right now, I mean, a lot of us have different opinions. I think the state of the Arrowverse right now is just pretty much dead and is about to be dead in a couple of months once Flash ends. But there was a time where I think this universe was great, and there was a time where there's 5 freaking TV shows. Like, that's just crazy. 5 shows that all connected to crossovers and everything. Were they all good? I mean, that's up to debate. Batwoman was certainly not good in my opinion. But still, that's just crazy that one show created like a whole TV universe, and they even connected to the movies a little bit, and connected to other movie universes, and connected to Smallville. Arrow was on at a time when I think the superhero genre was great all across the board for the most part. I'm not saying the superhero genre is dead or anything. I'm not one of those people that think, oh, superheroes are just dead, they're boring now. I just think that a lot of the content that's coming out right now is just not that good. The MCU has just been really disappointing, and I'm kind of concerned for its future. The DC universe, I don't know what they're doing. I'm hoping it's great. I have trust in James Gunn. I'm just tired of being let down multiple times by DC, except when it comes to the Arrowverse. But even the Arrowverse let me down during Crisis on Infinite Earths, which was supposed to be like the Avengers Endgame for that universe. Instead, it ended up being just really disappointing, filled with cheap cameos and not enough character moments. And the writing and the story was just all over the place, in my opinion. And also, I think superhero TV was just at an all-time high when Arrow was on, too. Even on the Marvel side of things. You had Daredevil, you had the Defenders all teaming up, Cloak and Dagger, the Runaways, Agent Carter, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Superhero TV now, I think it's still pretty good. I mean, we got Superman and Lois, you got Peacemaker. The Boys, I heard, was pretty good. I haven't caught up on that show yet. But it's definitely not the same anymore when it comes to superhero TV. The MCU shows are all pretty mid, in my opinion, or they're pretty bad. Also, Arrow was on and before I became an adult. I think I also just missed the days of being younger. I mean, I do love being 20, but you know, it was nice just not having to worry about responsibilities and all this other crazy stuff that went along. So I do, I guess, miss the days of when I was younger and Flash was on after school and it was on late at night, and Wednesdays nights were Arrow. I think I just missed those days. And then also, I forgot which day Legends came on, but Legends came on. Was part of that schedule too, and then you had Supergirl part of that schedule. Not really like whatever. I think it was more excited for like Tuesday nights The Flash, and then Wednesday nights it was Arrow right afterwards, and always being excited for the crossover every year. It was always just something to be hyped about, and it's all gone now. It's just kind of sad. I do wish Arrow went on a bit longer too, because I think there was still more that they could have done with the character. And I would have liked to see more with Oliver as the Green Arrow, with the whole world knowing his identity. I wish they took advantage of that a bit more in Arrow Season 7, but it is what it is. Plus, if Arrow lasted longer, we could have had some more crossovers with Oliver, Stephen Amell, because the only reason why they rushed into Crisis on Infinite Earths when they did, I think they had plans to do it much later, is because Arrow was ending and they wanted to do Crisis when Arrow was still on. I wonder what they would have done with the crossovers if Arrow lasted to like say season 9 or 10. I also would have liked to see one more crossover before they were setting up for Crisis on Infinite Earths. Don't get me wrong, I do like Elseworlds, but it was just set up for Crisis on Infinite Earths. So I wonder what kind of crossover they would have done after Crisis on Earth X if they didn't have to set up for Crisis on Infinite Earths. I think it would have been cool if they had one more crossover in between Crisis on Earth X and Elseworlds. I always thought it would have been cool if the Arrowverse did some sort of like Injustice, Gods Among Us type of crossover. I think something like that would have been pretty cool. They essentially did that with Crisis on Earth X, but I think it would have been cool if they did something like Injustice, but for like an alternate timeline or something like that. I think that would have been pretty cool for a crossover. But in the end, Arrow had a good run with a great ending in my opinion. All good things must come to an end, but man, I too miss the days of Arrow.